Here's an idea. Slender Man is the internet's legendary folk creature. Boo, sorry, but you know, it is Halloween tomorrow and we're all getting a little bit into the spoopy spirit. Some hundreds of years ago, we started carving faces into gourds and gathering around bonfires during this time of the year because of the imagined presence of spirits and fairies. Children and the poor went door to door collecting cakes, which when eaten were thought to free a soul from purgatory. But now, spirits and fairies have expanded to include ghosts, goblins, vampires, and witches made of plastic, and soul cakes have changed into mini Snickers, except for that one lady down the street who hands out those tiny boxes of raisins. What is her deal? The costume practice of guising turned into being able to get a sassy costume version of a disappointingly vast array of objects and characters. Sexy Chinese takeout? Really? Really. And the internet has become a part of the festivities. People change to horrific Twitter avatars and make how-tos for their crazy costume creations. There's a Google Doodle, more Instagrams of spooky nail art than you can shake a femur at, and scary stories or videos, many of which feature Slender Man, which is who we're going to be talking about right now. Slender Man is one of the internet's very few reoccurring and arguably its most frequently encountered threatening paranormal ghoulies. As his name suggests, he is a man shape, but a slender one. And not like Fassbender Slender, more like creepy Slender, like The Silence or Conan O'Brien or the ice cream truck driver from Legion. Slender Man doesn't have a face, but he does have a suit, and sometimes upwards of 6 tentacle-like arms. And though it's not entirely clear what he does when he gets you, it's probably not make you tea and show you the cross-stitching he's been working on. Slendy first appeared in photographs on Something Awful, but has since shown up in all kinds of creepypasta, which are like scary stories that are passed around the internet that you maybe saw me talk about in this ancient Know Your Meme video, link in the doobly-doo. Slendy is the frequent topic of visual art, usually lurking in the shadows. He's in video games where you have to actively evade his terrifying pursuit. And he's in videos, most notably Marble Hornets, Tribe 12, and Everyman Hybrid, where his mere presence causes bizarre distortion in camera gear and fits of coughing and extreme paranoia in the characters. The Slender Man media complex is comprised of many mediums and tells hundreds, if not thousands, of stories. BBC Radio 4's digital human host Alex Krotowski even asks if it might be the first great myth of the web. And it doesn't feel like too far-fetched of a question either. Slender Man's countless authors have, accidentally or not, developed a rather complete feeling Slender Man mythos. Like, according to the legend, baddies depicted in prehistoric Brazil, ancient Egypt, 16th century Germany, and Japan bear a strong resemblance to Mr. Slend. Was he really invented by Victor Surge on Something Awful, or was he channeled? Is it possible that he is a constant and pervasive presence throughout all of history? Some stories place him, or beings like him, in Germany around World War II, and in other parts of the world around various horrific events, both major and minor. Links to some stories in the place where links go. One explanation for his existence is something called tulpa, which Indian Buddhist texts describe as a mind-conjured apparition. Slender Man has been willed into existence because he is in the subconscious of many, many people. In the West, we call this a thought form, and therein lies what might be the best and most interesting thing about No-Face Longarms. While he does have a form that's recognizable and a general air de terror, he is not one thing in one place with one motive. He's a nebulous, psychically crowdsourced terror. He is literally the internet's nightmare, its legendary creature. The power of collective belief, or the collective willing And of course, he's in great ghouly company. Though we know that other legendary characters like the Gray Man, Manticore, Mothman, and Spring-Heeled Jack aren't, can't, and shouldn't be real, there is a set of information and circumstance that gives us, some of us more than others, permission to believe. There's something about acquiescing to the possibility of their mythical existence that is, well, fun. But on top of painting a world that is a little bit more mystical, a little bit more impossible or beguiling than it really is, telling those scary stories, like the one about the driver who flashes his lights, Bloody Mary, or the haunted mansion on the edge of town, helps us adjust, or maybe even grow up a little bit. One theory is that these folk stories help us express our subconscious, or that which is normally taboo. Folklorist Alan Dundes says that folklore provides a socially sanctioned outlet for the expression of what cannot be articulated in the more usual, direct way. But I think there's something else to be said about wielding the scary story, about knowing that the boogeyman is not real, about knowing a story that your friends don't, and about being able to affect them with its use. Scary stories almost always take place in a world that is like ours, but with one terrifying addition. In the epistemology of the horror story, Susan Stewart writes that contrary to the distinction between true and made-up stories, the horror story exists in a peculiar place between the real and the fictive. As such, and given the piece-by-piece narrative construction of the horror story, quote, the listener's welfare becomes increasingly implicated as the the narrative sequence proceeds. There is this solar system then, at the center of which is the story itself, and orbiting around it is the knowledge that it's fake, buying into it anyways because it's fun, the teller wanting to scare their friends, and providing both fright and the information of the story itself that their friends can tell again or build upon to make their own. And that last part about building on existing stories is just as true for the Jersey Devil, the Owl Man, and werewolves as it is for Slender Man, the Rake, and Who Was Phone. And every other not scary legend, internet or otherwise for that matter. Because for whatever folk archetype exists, the internet has its analog. The trickster and the troll face, the strong man and Chuck Norris, the innocent and bad luck Brian. And while we might not have campfires, we do have wikis and message boards, fan fictions, and copy/creepypastas. The point being that folklore isn't necessarily a thing that's only happened in the past, and that for as long as there are folks, that wherever they are, they're probably minting new lore. The internet is no exception, and if anything, it has made such a pronouncement even more true. In his introduction to Folklore and the Internet, Trevor Blank writes that due to its inclusivity, the internet has helped to re-facilitate the spread of folklore through electronic conduits. So while when someone says folk tales, you might think of dusty old tomes, Grimm's fairy tales, or stories from before electricity, let alone YouTube and creepypastas, the truth is that folklore and its impact is just as present, and maybe just as inescapable, as the Slender Man himself. What do you guys think? What are some of your favorite internet folk tales or scary stories, Slender Man or otherwise? Let us know in the comments. And if your story is too long for the comments, I made a post for scary stories specifically on the subreddit, so there's a link in the description. And if you're not too busy sewing extra long sleeves for your Slender Man costume, please subscribe. There was a lot of the internet's native art form on last week's video. Let's see what you guys had to say about controlling versus being your avatar. So first and foremost, Jamin is here from Game Show and also very tall.
I know. I'm wearing lifts.
We made sister episodes last week, so Jamin's here to talk a little bit about his reaction to the idea of being versus controlling the avatar, right?
Yeah, so like that conversation about like agency and being versus controlling for the avatar makes me think about my own emotions and whether those are real or whether those are like surrogate emotions for some other experience. So like if I'm not actually the avatar,
right,
then not the feelings the avatar is feeling, but the feelings I feel, like anger, for example, are those real feelings, or watching my son get hit by a car. Is that like
in the game?
Right, because I always thought like in game, I always thought one of the magical things about games was that those were real experience. Like I was actually getting a glimpse of what it might be like to go through X experience.
Right, that you're like stepping into this person for a second and realizing what it's like to have like whatever that experience is.
Right, so
sort of like what Gonzalo Frasco was talking about, right? Like the idea of, you know, you're embodying this moment.
Right, exactly. And the worry is that like if those memories aren't like real memories, like I'm not actually getting a taste of what that experience might be like,
yeah,
then it's no more different for games than like remembering being at a movie theater.
Right.
So that feels like kind of a bummer.
So it's like a weird simulation of emotions as opposed to an actual empathetic.
Exactly.
Ah.
And that's
the line between controlling and being.
Exactly. And so it's tied to like whether you actually feel those things or not, which would kind of bum me out. Is like I feel like I'm not actually feeling those emotions. That would become a bummer.
That would become a bummer. Huh. That's really interesting.
That's what I was thinking of.
Well, thanks for coming by, Jamin.
Yeah, no worries.
And
no worries.
I'm gonna go actually hang out with Jamin on Game Show. So if you want to go see my reaction to his video, you should go check those out and just check out Game Show in general. So thanks for coming by, Jamin.
Yeah, no worries, man.
High five. Yeah. To everybody who recommended that I play the Stanley Parable, I know it's once the Mac re-release comes out, it is going to be the first thing I do. I'm going to cancel all of my plans, but I just, I can't, yeah, it's on the list. I really want to play it. JRandomHacker172342 says that Special Ops The Line is a really great example of being versus controlling your avatar, and that the point of it is maybe to get to a place where you just want to turn it off. I don't know, I'd be curious to know if other people who played it feel the same way. The Sumo5 says that when they feel like they're playing their character, then they have a very hard time choosing the evil path, if that is an option that they have. And actually, up until recently, I had the same problem. I would always have to play through the game through the good path, and then I would go back and do the evil path as kind of like, you know, I don't know, build up some karma, I guess. I don't know what my reasoning was. SNexus4 seems to say that you really are your character in Minecraft because of the amount of agency you have, that it's just tons of agency, and that, you know, you can step back from all of these things that you've built and feel like you really did those things, which, yeah, I mean, you can invest a lot of time in Minecraft. To Balak Asnate and Devin Specht, I had really similar experiences in both of these games, in Dragon Age Origins and the Walking Dead game, that I felt so much like the character I was playing that it was trying at times, very invested. Ugh. Optimus and Brian Gerning left really great comments about the nature of Dungeons and Dragons, and how you are, in tabletop games, expected to kind of be your character, and I think that influences a lot of how I play video games, actually, in that, like, I want to experience that thing of being the character that you might otherwise be controlling. So yeah, this is really great insight. Joey Turco says that playing XCOM Enemy Unknown has caused him to think critically about sending people into war, and that, you know, like a lot of people do with XCOM, named his characters after people that he knew, and then had a very brutal realization when his wife's character was put in danger. Igas Pinto Basto points out that, at the very least, the way that we talk about the things that we control indicates a sort of embodiment and makes a really good observation about driving and the way people control their cars and think of it as an extension of themselves. Philosophy 2 points out that the dialectical interplay between agency and structure does not stop in games and extends all the way out into real life, which, yeah, Jeff Murray was actually talking about consumer behavior and not games specifically, so yeah, it's a wide range of applications for that idea. Charlie is So Cool Like points out the last thing that you have to do in The Last of Us as a moment that made him question the very character he was playing, which is actually the moment that inspired me to write a lot of the episodes. So yeah, I agree. The end of that game is something else. This week's episode was brought to you by the hard work of these spoopy ghoulies. We have an IRC and a subreddit, links in the description. This week's tweet of the week is every tweet by IdeaChan_ebooks, but also one by USAQIB that points us towards a Roy Christopher article about shared memories and pop culture, which has tons of Blade Runner references, so good in my book.